for Wednesday, February 16, 2022, réunion spéciale pour 16 février 2022. Special meeting called by Mayor Watson to discuss matters related to the ongoing impacts of the truck convoy demonstration and the legal occupation of the city's residents and businesses. By electronic participation, this meeting will be held through electronic participation in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended by the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act. Those who are able to, please rise for a moment of personal reflection. Thank you. Merci. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Luloff.
Present.
Councillor Dudas.
I'm here.
Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Curry.
Here.
Councillor El-Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Gower.
Here.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Here.
Councillor Shirley. Councillor Egle.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
I'm here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseil Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Conseil Cloutier.
Present.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor DeRose.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Meehan.
I'm here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
You see?
You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Resolving no regrets filed to date. Resolving into committee of the whole. Councillor Cloutier, please, seconded by Councillor Kitts. Councillor Cloutier.
Sorry about that. That City Council resolved to move into committee of the whole pursuant to Section 52 of the Procedure Bylaw.
Carried.
I have a question, Mayor, on that. And the question is whether we can have a different chair for today. Given the nature of the discussion we're going to be going through, I think a more neutral chair would be appropriate.
No, I disagree with that. I chair the council meeting, so we're going to continue on.
Okay, I'll put a motion forward to have Councillor Dudas chair the meeting as Deputy Mayor. Just given the need for neutrality today and the normal undemocratic way that meetings are run.
And do you have a seconder for the motion?
I'll second Councillor Leeper.
Okay, yeas and nays and Councillor Menard's motion.
Councillor Curry.
No.
Councillor Dudas.
No.
Councillor McKenney.
Yes.
Councillor Moffat.
No.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Yes.
Councillor King.
Yes.
Councillor Gower.
No.
Councillor Meehan.
Yes.
Councillor DeRose.
No.
Conseil Cloutier.
No.
Councillor Deans.
Yes.
Conseil Fleury.
No.
Councillor Kitts.
No.
Councillor El Shantiri.
No.
Councillor Hubley.
No.
Councillor Leeper.
Yes.
Councillor Harder.
No.
Councillor Tierney.
No.
Councillor Brockington.
Yes.
Councillor Shirelli. Councillor Menard.
Yes.
Councillor Luloff.
No.
Councillor Eglai.
No.
Mayor Watson.
No.
8 yeas, 15 nays.
Thank you. Yeah, motion to go into committee of the whole, carried. Update. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. We're meeting today to discuss the ongoing occupation of our city, which is currently in its third week. I recognize how difficult this has been on our residents, business owners, and their workers, especially in the downtown core. Residents are exhausted and terrified, and our small businesses are struggling to keep staff, attract customers, and to stay open. On February 6th, given the severity of the situation, I declared a state of emergency in the city of Ottawa at a time when the occupation was entering its second week, and as residents all around us were begging us to act to protect their neighborhoods. They felt abandoned by all levels of government. Frankly, they had endured 2 weeks of inaction and finger-pointing. Nos résidents se sentent abandonnés par leur gouvernement.
They feel abandoned by their government.
To me, reached out last week to try to broker a short-term solution between the city and some of the Convoy organizers. I saw an opportunity to work in good faith to secure some relief for our downtown residents. Thankfully, starting Monday afternoon, we saw progress when trucks cleared out of major streets like O'Connor and Bank and into available space on Wellington. 43 large trucks left the residential districts of Centertown on Monday, and this has already provided approximately 15,000 residents with a heightened sense of security and a reprieve from the constant noise and exhaust fumes affecting them in their neighborhood. There's been more progress since Monday, and what was 150 tractor trailers just a few days ago have now been reduced by half. Putting more vehicles on Wellington to offer our residents a reprieve from the daily siege is an easy decision to take, unless you value buildings over the sanity of our residents. To date, the Convoy organizers have kept their word by getting a significant number of trucks to move out from residential streets, not all of them, unfortunately, that they don't control, into a smaller and more manageable perimeter along Wellington. On Friday, Premier Ford declared a state of emergency in the province of Ontario, and the next day enacted various stronger tools to assist our police and bylaw officers in cracking down on illegal activity. On Monday, Prime Minister Trudeau's government invoked the Federal Emergencies Act, which provides even more additional levers to put an end to this occupation. These measures target the international funds and assets sustaining the movement. It will also compel service providers like towing companies to respond to the city's call for help or face massive fines. I want to thank our federal and provincial partners for their help in delivering these tools, and I have no doubt that these will help us in our efforts to end this occupation. Ces mesures vont nous aider à mettre fin à cette préoccupation.
This will help us put an end to this occupation, and I thank the province and the federal government for their assistance.
I'm pleased that our advocacy for more police officers has started to materialize. We need the support of both our federal and provincial governments in order to back up our police officers and to enforce the full scope of the law and of these new measures. I'm encouraged by the recent policing developments, including the fact that both the RCMP and the OPP have named command leaders to help end the occupation in our city. I know that members of council, the general public, and partner agencies who know him and have dealt with him are pleased to see Steve Bell assume acting command of our municipal police force. I have been having encouraging discussions with federal ministers who are very much committed to helping us. I also conveyed to both the Prime Minister and the Premier how dire the situation is for our downtown businesses who are already struggling to stay afloat due to the pandemic. I've asked them to put in place the supports that business owners and their employees need to survive this crisis and just to simply pay their rent. Nous devons aider nos entreprises et leurs employés à faire face à cette situation. I was encouraged to hear Prime Minister Trudeau mention on Monday that an announcement to this effect would take place in the coming days. I'll continue to work with our federal and provincial partners until we see a robust assistance program and package that our city's businesses and workers need to make it through this crisis. This past weekend, some residents joined peaceful counter demonstrations where they confronted protesters. I congratulate them. I know we're all tired and upset, but we will get through this and our city will return to the place we know and love. Although I understand their anger and their frustration, the situation remains volatile, and I want to emphasize that we are trying to keep everyone safe. The Ottawa Police Service is leading nearly 190 active criminal investigations, including 15 related to hate-motivated incidents. And since the occupation began, OPS officers have arrested 33 individuals for criminal behavior, and 18 have received charges for a litany of unlawful acts committed in our city. Our bylaw officers are also hard at work enforcing our city's bylaws and maintaining emergency access in the red zone. On Sunday alone, they issued 366 parking infractions, and since January 28th, they have issued a total of 2,922 parking tickets in the red zone. On Monday, the city was granted an injunction by the Ontario Superior Court, which will help our police and bylaw officers crack down on illegal fires, fireworks, noise, and idling going forward. I want to remind our residents that any hate-motivated incidents and any criminal offences directly related to the demonstrations can be reported to the Ottawa Police at ottawapolice.ca. All reports will be pursued to the full extent of the law. I know OPS, city councillors, and city staff are working tirelessly, and I want to thank you for your service. I also want to acknowledge that this occupation has taken a severe toll on our frontline workers, including in our grocery stores, pharmacies, restaurants, and hotels, as well as the dedicated healthcare providers in our community. Les 3 dernières semaines ont été très difficiles pour plusieurs travailleurs sur le terrain. Many have faced incredible hardship just trying to get safely to work or trying to help some of the most vulnerable people in our community. I want to acknowledge that throughout these events, many health and social service providers across Ottawa have not wavered in providing critical services to our residents. For example, I know that Monique and her formidable team at the Good Companion Centre have gone out of their way to identify and reach out to seniors who have been stuck at home throughout this terrible ordeal. And for these seniors and all those who don't feel safe leaving their homes, this is taking a real toll on their mental health as well. It can be hard to reach out for help, but there are services and people who can, in fact, help you. If you need to speak to someone, you can start by calling the Distress Centre of Ottawa support line at 613-238-3311. That number of the Distress Centre is 613-238-3311. Et en français, il y a Tele-Aid Outaouais au 613.
And Tele-Aid Ottawa, 613-641-6433. Tele-Aid Outaouais, 613-741-6433.
But we're making some measurable progress in dealing with protesters and getting them out of our residential areas. To our elected officials and our residents, I urge patience and solidarity while we get through this together. To both the protester and occupiers, I have a simple message. The window of opportunity for you to leave our city is closing. The combined OPS, OPP, and RCMP presence is growing stronger every day, and many of you are probably longing to get back to your own communities. If you leave now voluntarily, the odds of being able to leave with your property are quite high. It's my understanding that those who want to leave now will be allowed to leave unless they have committed criminal acts. To those who never intended to harm innocent residents in our residential districts, I urge you to reflect on the serious consequences of your continued occupation of our city. The longer you stay, the greater the risk to yourself and others. At the outset, we all thought that this would be a peaceful protest and that's a freedom we all cherish in this country. But this is no longer that case. And I ask you to go back to your own communities and allow our residents to reclaim their neighborhoods, their parks, and their regular daily lives free of harassment and economic hardship. I now call on Acting Chief of Police Steve Bell to provide council with a high-level overview of how the situation is unfolding in Ottawa. Then we'll go to our City Manager, Steve Kanalakis, and the GM of Emergency and Protective Services, Kim Ayotte. We will also be joined by City Solicitor David White to answer questions regarding the injunction, as well as Prime Minister's statement on Monday. So Acting Chief Bell has 1 hour, so I'd urge members to please share the time because he has an important meeting with other heads of police agencies at that time. Acting Chief Bell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We're here today to provide you a briefing on the plan of action that has already begun to end this unlawful protest in our city. We're also here to answer questions from members of council. This morning, the command of the Ontario Provincial Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and the Ottawa Police Service were briefed on the significant steps being taken to bring a safe end to this crisis. The Ottawa Police remains the police of jurisdiction and the lead of this integrated command. This is the city we're sworn to protect. It's our responsibility and our job to safely remove this unlawful protest. The RCMP and the OPP are here to support us, and I thank them for the significant efforts and resources that they are bringing forward. We have a methodical and well-resourced plan with a simple mission. We're going to take back the entirety of the downtown core and every occupied space. We're going to remove this unlawful protest. We will return our city to a state of normalcy. Over the last few days, we've developed strategies to deal with all possible scenarios. We will be focused on public safety, demonstrator safety, and officer safety. All of our plans and actions will be lawful and in line with the Charter. Demonstrators must leave the unlawful protest sites. Officers are already going truck to truck to advise them of this demand. We want them to do this peacefully and immediately, and we're facilitating the departure of anyone who wants to leave. We also have appropriate and lawful methods to remove anyone who refuses. We also are aware that children are in the area. This concerns us greatly. We've been engaged a planning team with the Children's Aid Society to encourage anyone with children in the area to leave and bring those children to a place of safety. We also have a plan to ensure children are protected and cared for during any actions. You'll be hearing and seeing these actions in the coming days. It will take time to do this right. Every step will be considered and methodical. I ask for your patience and confidence. Some of the techniques we are lawfully able and prepared to use are not what we're used to seeing in Ottawa, but we are prepared to use them and whatever means necessary to bring about the safest outcome and restore order. I'm confident that we now have the resources, the plan, and the commitment to get this job done. The plan will not be considered complete until such a time as the streets are cleared fully. We have commitment from our partners that resources will remain in place until this objective is achieved. The residents and businesses of our downtown core and across this city have suffered greatly. We know that, and we regret the pain, stress, and disruption this unlawful protest has caused. We know that this has left our residents feeling unsafe and abandoned and has tarnished our reputation and that of our city. We cannot change the past, but we can promise you that we stand with you. We will safely return these areas to their normal state as soon as we can. There are many questions being asked about how we got here. We all know that there will be a full review, and we all welcome it so we can learn from the events of the last 3 weeks. But for today and the days to come, the Ottawa Police Service and our partners are focused on getting this job done. Wherever these questions take us, I want you to know that the members of the Ottawa Police Service care greatly about this city. They are committed to these actions and they are ready to go. I am proud of them and all that they have done and all they will be doing in the coming days. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Acting Chief. Questions to the Chief? Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you very much, Chief. In the past couple of weeks, we've heard tough language from the police. There were press releases issued that indicated that occupiers should leave, and that was not backed up with enforcement. What has changed? And I guess bluntly, why should residents of Ottawa believe police this time?
So as I indicated in my statement, we've been continually working with our partners over the past number of weeks to build a comprehensive plan to actually remove the demonstrators from the streets of Ottawa. We know that through the efforts of this council and the Ottawa Police Services Board, the call has gone out to our partners to bring forward resources to assist us in that. As I indicated, we now have the plan and the resources and the commitment to actually move ahead to remove people from our streets. Our desire will always be to successfully negotiate and encourage people to leave. But in the absence of that, we do have the ability to remove them and now have the plan and the resources to be able to achieve that.
Chief, what are the techniques to which you referred that Ottawa residents may not be used to seeing?
So it's too early to say, and I won't be able to provide any operational information so that we can make sure that we do protect that operation. We do have all of our authorities and all of our abilities around escalating use of force to be able to remove people if they don't comply. But I'll again say our hope is as we look to the coming days, people will see our determination and will choose to leave our streets. If they choose not to, we do have the ability to have them removed.
Chief, I'm trying to understand why it has taken nearly 3 weeks to develop a plan for removing these folks. It doesn't take that long, surely, to plan for the removal of a hot tub in front of the Chateau Laurier. I guess I'm asking for some reassurance, or I'm asking for some understanding of why that plan is not in place yet, and why residents should believe that after 3 weeks we finally have a plan, and why that wasn't in place within 3 or 4 days.
So, as we've indicated from the very early days, from even before this demonstration started, before it evolved across the country as the Freedom Convoy, this is an unprecedented, unparalleled action within Canada and actually across North America. As we've gone through this, we've identified the challenges with the location that the trucks are in, with the size and complexity of mounting an operation to actually take an area and have people and equipment like exists removed. It has taken us time to do this comprehensive level of planning that we knew we need to do to be able to keep our citizens safe, the demonstrators safe, and our officers safe as we mount that. It also takes time to actually amass the number of resources that we need to be able to successfully take on an operation like this. We called in early days to identify that there was challenges with our resourcing levels. We've now seen an unparalleled level of cooperation with our partners to be able to bring in resources to assist us in successfully ending this.
I know my colleagues are going to ask more questions about those resources, et cetera, but can I just ask, to what degree are you seeking guidance from the mayor in terms of implementing any plans?
Not at all. The police the police are an independent group that report through the Police Services Board, who have oversight on us as an organization. So we don't seek input from any level of politics to actually have input on the plans we're developing or delivering. We are very cautious of that, and it's something that goes with our professional oath to be independent from the politics that may exist.
But has the mayor had an opportunity to be briefed on plans and an opportunity to weigh in on whether those are advisable or not?
So both the Police Service Board chair and the mayor were briefed early at a very high level on the plans, as is allowed for us under the Police Services Act. We will continue to brief members as necessary moving ahead, including a full in-camera operational briefing to our Police Services Board.
Okay, I will cede the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hubley, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and welcome, Interim Chief or Acting Chief, whatever the proper term is that we're supposed to use. I want to ask if I'm hearing correctly that you feel that you have enough resources now to get the job done that the people in Ottawa, our residents, have been asking to be done for weeks.
So thanks for the question. Interim Chief Bell is the title right now. So what I can indicate is our partners, as I said, have been extremely cooperative and helpful to us in allowing us to amass the resources that we do require to mount such an operation. We are continuing to build that capacity. We're continuing to work with our partners to make sure before we entered into any sort of direct action, that we would have the resources necessary in order to be able to do that. There are steps and stages that we will go through before we do enter into any sort of direct action. And I'll again say our absolute hope and desire is that the protesters understand that this protest and demonstration is now coming to an end, and they willfully leave our streets on their own accord.
Okay, I'm not going to ask too many more questions because I think a number of my colleagues want to ask, and I want to see you out there with the men and women of the Ottawa Police Service to get this done. So I just want to leave, if I may, Mr. Mayor, with one comment, and that is if the interim chief could make sure the word gets to the men and women of the Ottawa Police Service that we appreciate what they're trying to do here. We've got their back as you initiate whatever actions that are coming in the next few days, and appreciate you stepping up to take the lead on this, interim chief. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Okay, thank you. I thought others had their hands up first, but I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief, for being here and giving us this report. One of the concerns right from the beginning was that lives could be at risk in terms of moving too fast and to interfering with the activities that are going on. How can you explain how this has changed?
So I wouldn't explain that it has changed. We are always concerned about intervening in any level with any sort of protest with the risk of demonstrators being injured, members of our public being injured, or members of our police services being injured. We continually weigh those risks and look at proper interdiction techniques to minimize those risks. But I think it's important to note those risks always exist if we have to actively dismantle an ongoing protest. So we have plans in place, we have resources available to look at how we minimize those, and we will continue to work with groups that are involved in the demonstration to encourage and have them leave on their own accord before we do need to intervene.
I'm particularly concerned about the children and how that will be dealt with. Is this removing the children first? It is, because clearly from what I saw this morning, there was resistance. These are people that have hunkered down after 20 days and feel empowered. And I am concerned about that. I know the Children's Aid is involved. Is this a matter of removing children first?
So I share your concern, Councillor Kavanaugh. I'm very concerned about the children and others that are in the protest area. We continue to work with the Children's Aid Society, with other youth and children's service providers to look at the best way we can to have any of those children removed prior to us entering into any sort of engagement. But again, it is a concern for us, and we're taking every step we can to mitigate that risk.
The other risk was school zones. We heard reports of those going to school zones, and it's very difficult to monitor so many schools. But I just wanted to know how that is being dealt with. Obviously, this is more complicated, but very important. And I know this is affecting the mental health of many children who we're hearing about, that not just parents.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've indicated from the beginning of this demonstration and protest, that we take any reports that are around it extremely seriously. That includes the 15 reports of activity in and around schools that we've received to date. Most of those were towards the end of last week. We haven't seen an ongoing or increased activity in and around school zones, but I can tell you each of those incidents is being investigated, and we've actually increased our resources in and around school zones since we started to see an uptick in those reports. It's something we take very seriously as well, so we make sure that we have resources applied to school zones.
I appreciate it, especially as the downtown is emptied. I am concerned that there'll be a lot of. Anyway, it's another concern. In terms of the integrated command center, the request previously was to have 1,800 officers. Do we have 1,800 officers now working?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just go ahead.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is our integrated command center between the OPS, the RCMP, and the OPP has proved to be extremely effective. We've been able to get the resource requests that we've been asking for, and we're able to pull together the resources that we need to successfully and safely end the occupation. What I will not be able to provide is any detailed numbers of officers who we have brought into the city to mount any sort of activity that will help us finally resolve this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the fact that there was a request, but you can't be specific on whether it was totally committed to, because we were all confused about how they were going to be used. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Kitts, please.
Thank you. Welcome, Interim Chief Bell. It's not easy to take the reins mid-crisis, so thank you. We know that there are several satellite encampments popping up across the city, including two very close to where I live, actually, in Vars, and another one further down the street in Embrun. I've been in constant communication with the constable assigned to my area. He's been incredibly responsive and accessible. I've been conducting my own daily surveillance. It's remained relatively small, and I've connected with the Russell Township Mayor. But obviously, the majority of our resources are needed downtown. So I was hoping you could give me an update on how you're monitoring these sites, and I guess what your message would be for nearby residents.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We are aware of the activity in the area that we're speaking about. I'm very happy you're reporting good communication with our community police officers. That's what they're there for, and to provide that sort of information. We continue to work with our RCMP and OPP partners, as well as our joint intelligence group, to bring in information about activities of those areas and all areas associated with the demonstration. As we look, and as I indicated in my remarks, as we look to finalize the occupation of our streets, it will include finalizing all of the locations that exist and have been contributing to the illegal activities.
Okay, thank you for that. It's appreciated. We carried Councillor McKenney's motion at the last special council meeting requesting the RCMP to take over policing the parliamentary precinct. Was that request made, refused? If you could give an update on the status of that, that would be helpful.
So yes, thank you. Immediately, there was good debate and good discussion around that motion at the time. I identified while that debate was occurring that based on the current Police Services Act and the legislation that exists around that, the motion as it was presented was not able to be completed. The RCMP will not come in and take over authority or responsibility for an area that is a municipal police agency's responsibility, because they aren't allowed under the Police Services Act. What we were able to provide and indicate, though, is I did understand the spirit of the motion and the intention of the motion, and through all of our deployment models, we've tried to make sure that we did achieve the spirit and intention of that motion so that we could have our members in our community where they best know our residents and it can help support them.
Okay. My last question. We know that obtaining resources from other levels of government have been an issue. You mentioned in your opening remarks that you're confident we have the resources now, and respond to my colleague that we've had unparalleled cooperation with other levels. I guess my question is when did you see that shift? What changed?
So anytime you bring resources in, it takes time. The OPP and RCMP are both big machines that take time to actually identify the people to come with the resources and skill sets that we need and get them in onto the ground where we are. Where they're most needed. We continue to work, and we have from very early days with the RCMP and OPP planning teams to really refine and identify what exactly were the resources we need and how do we get them into our city. That activity has greatly ramped up over the last week and particularly been refined and honed over the last 3 or 4 days so that we are seeing great cooperation and great allocation of resources to our city. So it's hard to specifically point to a time, but I can tell you it's been increasing and the cooperation and partnership has been growing every day.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you, Chief Bell. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Interim Chief, for taking our questions. You said you have a plan, you have resources, you have the commitment to getting the job done. Can you confirm you do not seek or need any additional resources via City Council to achieve your objective? You have what you need. Is that correct?
That is correct. City Council has advocated for us from early days to get levels of cooperation from different municipalities and different levels of government, and we appreciate that. And all of that work has ultimately culminated in us being able to develop a plan that we plan to deliver to see a successful conclusion of this.
Will you commit to Council and the people of Ottawa that there will not be an influx of protesters or occupiers coming downtown this weekend, or will police take action to ensure that does not happen?
I will commit to Council that we have a good, well-resourced plan that we will execute from now moving ahead to end the occupation in this city.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Conseiller Fleury, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire, and hi, Interim Chief. I want to coattail on the last ask or comment by Councillor Brockington. So, Chief, many businesses and residents want to know when they're going to get their life back, and it is Family Day long weekend. It is, it is an important time for us as a community, as a city. Are we recommending that businesses open this weekend along Rideau Street and the Byward Market?
So where I'll start with that is what I indicated in my statement. We have great empathy for the impacts that this illegal occupation has had on our residents, particularly in the neighboring areas to where the red zone is, where the footprint of the demonstration is, and to residents and businesses in Market, Centertown, Lower Town area. We know how disruptive this has been. We know how taxing and how stressful and how it's created feelings of unsafety and insecurity. We absolutely know that. Everything that we have done to date and now moving ahead has been intended to help restore that feeling of safety and security that people have to have in their own neighborhood, where they work, where they live. We now have developed a plan where we are actually going to bring the resources in, a plan that I'm not able to share timing of because of operational requirements for us to be able to execute it. But I can let you know we are as expeditiously as possible working on trying to get this demonstration finally concluded.
With your reference earlier to it was Councillor Kitz's comment on the work of the RCMP and getting, I guess the spirit of that motion was really bringing Ottawa police officers back into our communities. And I've certainly seen officers back in the community at closed intersections. I certainly do not debate that. But there continues to be extreme concerns of public safety and for our businesses that have chosen to open, and for residents walking in their communities. So what can you share with us on that front? I know you are extremely cautious on how you're describing your plans of intervention, and I understand that. But we owe it to residents in the meantime and through this process to ensure that when they walk down the street, when they go to particular commerce on our main streets, that they can do so safely. And I've gone many times, and I myself don't feel safe. So I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't know if there's particular interventions by the OPS to be more present by foot outside of the intersections of closed streets in neighborhoods.
So I too have walked in those areas, and I understand the concern of our residents and of our business owners. From early days, we identified a surge capacity within those neighborhoods to specifically try and address those feelings of unsafety and insecurity. As we've received more resources over the past week, and particularly over the past number of days, I believe you would have seen an increased presence of officers within those areas. We will continue to have that increased presence because the safety and security of our residents and the fact that they've lost it is the number one concern for us. So all of our efforts are around ending this occupation and making sure that people feel safe where they live and work.
Certainly beyond the occupation, we will continue to necessitate a strong by-foot presence in these areas to regain public safety interest. I'd like to understand a bit better the decision tree of the Integrated Command Center. And I raise it, as you and Deputy Chief Ferguson are aware, we continue to see different elements reported. And when they make their way to that table, they're like an empty void. We never get information back or actions on the ground. So I've become a little delusioned by the work of that group, not in the spirit of their ability to intervene, but intervene on the occupation, but intervene on those micro information. And, you know, for example, we had incidents at the Bikers Church on the weekend. We've had vehicles park anywhere and everywhere in residential area outside of the occupation. And it's making its way up to the command center, and even local bylaw authorities are told not to go in and act, which frustrates community confidence in our ability to enforce. So I'd love to understand, my question is really the decision tree. What's the role? What's your role? What's the role of OPS? And how can we make sure that we don't lose sight of the local interests and the local actions that can help rebuild and bring community trust during this occupation?
So I am going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Ferguson to talk about the decision tree that we've developed. What I can tell you is we've worked closely with the OPP and RCMP to develop a command structure that has the common goal of doing exactly what you say, and that is remove the demonstrators and increase safety and security of our residents in the city. There is not a member who's not a member of any police service who's here that isn't actually directed towards that mission. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Ferguson and have her explain how our integrated command center and command model is working.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor, for your question. I know you and I have had some conversations about this, and it remains a frustration for you. There's a couple of different pieces. There's our own internal command center, which deals with a lot of the demands for service. And so the issue at the Bikers Church, and that was fed into that stream for them to be aware of it ahead of time and to be able to assign members to respond and provide a presence. The integrated command center that we announced yesterday or spoke of in the media yesterday is really, I'll try and make it as simple as possible, sort of a gold, silver, bronze, if you will. And the gold level is at the chief level, the commissioner level, and that really is a very strategic approach to it, keeping to the tenets of what we're trying to achieve here. The silver level is really the commanders in the seats who are making the decisions. So plans are fed up to those commanders. They review and assess and are, have gone through several levels before it gets to them. And they are the decision makers in that model. And then the bronze are really the people who are separated out into their specific subject matter experts. So planning, logistics, operations, intelligence, those pieces. So there's many different boxes that feed up to that silver level where the decisions are made, and there's media involved. There's finance. It's a really well-oiled machine. So when you get an incident or something that is reported through that, it should go through our operations piece, and they assess it against the risk and all of the other priorities that they have going on, and a decision is made as to what resources to apply to that. So I hope that helps a little bit.
How do we, just a further clarification, so how do we get a local intervention not lost in the bigger planning efforts? That's how it feels, certainly, over the last 2 weeks.
I can appreciate that. And I'm looking at the numbers right now of the officers who are deployed currently, who were sent out as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. And over 50% of our officers are on, and I mean by Ottawa police officers, are in our areas. So we have, the community safety teams or community engagement teams. That is all Ottawa police officers. We do have our traffic unit who is out there, who knows the intersections, who's aware of the complaints and are receiving those and responding to them. So we have done what we could strategically to place members of the RCMP and the OPP who may not be familiar with our city to static posts, to traffic posts, to limiting access and egress to the red zone, if you will, and made the best use of our people, which is out in the communities and doing what they can.
Okay, my last question is, there was a planned motion in relation to an ask for the military. And my interest in that motion was specific to understand the need for equipment and logistics. Most of us are born and raised in Ottawa, and we can appreciate how Canada Day over the years has changed, where in most recent years there's been checkpoints with bags and so on. And that takes a lot of barricades. It takes a lot of people, resources to monitor the ins and outs. Beyond that, I think not even if I don't have the details of your plan, if some of the rigs choose not to move, it is not local OC Transpo towing that can manage the tens of rigs that would need to be moved. So I want to understand how serious of a conversation we have had with the province and the feds to present serious shortfalls on equipment such as towing to advance our local plans. And I'm not looking to get into a particular tactic. That is not my intention here. But my intention is it requires a number of plans. You've expressed earlier the issue of families and kids. You've expressed the issue of resources. Ultimately, you'll get to a point where you'll have to make arrests and move people out. What's remaining is trucks. And as you know, to get our locals' life back, it requires some of those corridors to be reopened. So I'm interested to understand what thoughts you have around that sort of equipment need going forward.
So every conversation we've had around this has been exceptionally serious. We continue to work with all levels of government to look and build all of the plans and get all the logistical resources that we need to mount a successful operation. We are working continuously to encourage people to peacefully leave the city, leave the footprint right now. But I can tell you all of the plans, and I won't go into details of them, but all of the plans and all of the considerations that are needed to actually mount an operation to remove people and equipment from the downtown core have been developed by some of the, if not the best planners in the country to make sure that when we do begin this, that it is successful and ultimately ends this protest.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your intervention and responses.
Merci, Conseil. Councillor Menard, please.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a quick question and then I'm going to hand it off to Councillor McKenney, who is currently on the street in the community where they've been this entire time. And so residents have been livid with us, with police, with inaction, and about the contradictions they're hearing. So we're hearing competing messages all the time. First, we heard that this was peaceful, and then that there could be violence. And then when there was minimal enforcement, there was no physical violence. So people are wondering what the truth is. And then we keep hearing that this is an unprecedented situation. We hear that over and over again, but I don't buy that. In 2019, some of the exact same organizers did a very similar action with a GoFundMe, with a convoy of trucks that went to the Hill and parked there, with refueling of other people's trucks, with some of the exact same messages. And we also saw posts that this was coming and that they were going to stay long-term this time. So why didn't we see this coming initially, properly prepare the city, and why do we keep hearing contradictions?
So, Councillor Menard, I share your frustration. I share your frustration that these people are still in our city, that our streets are still overtaken. So I completely understand the frustration, anger, upsetness that you're representing on behalf of almost every citizen of this city. We share that frustration. We have continually been monitoring and assessing the progress of this demonstration that, as you just identified, has changed in dynamic over the past several weeks as it has arrived here, as it has started out as a protest and then occupied our streets for the last 2.5 weeks. We will continue to manage and monitor it. We will continue to develop our plans and look at how we implement the plan that we're here to tell you about today to ultimately end this protest.
I hope it happens as soon as possible. Today would be a good day. I'm going to cede my time to Councillor McKinney.
Well, she's next anyways, Councillor. So Councillor McKinney?
Yeah, they are next, Mayor.
Thank you. I am out here on the street, as you can see, where people live.
We're never fucking leaving.
Yeah, hi there. Where people live. And here we are Wednesday evening. We couldn't even have this meeting early in the day. I have not heard from anyone, whether it's the city, whether it's police, anyone. What is the plan to protect the people who live downtown, who are under siege, who continue to be under siege? And I don't know who is, hi bud, I don't know who is counting trucks. I don't know who is counting what is happening here, but I can tell you that the street is not cleared. Our residential area is not cleared. The smell of diesel fumes right now is actually sickening. And I want to know, and I want to know specifically, and I'm going to ask the city later on, what is the plan for this weekend? What is the plan so that we don't get thousands of people back on our streets, adding to this mayhem and chaos? What are we doing? How are you stopping people from coming in on the weekend to add to what is already here?
So thank you for your question, Councillor McKinney. And again, I completely understand the frustration that you're articulating on behalf of your residents. We are actively working, as I indicated, we're actively working and have developed a plan that is adequately and appropriately resourced to ultimately end this occupation. That is what you will see us roll out over the next coming days to successfully have everyone removed from our streets.
But again, I'm not hearing what is the plan to ensure that this mayhem and chaos.
I love you guys. I love you.
I know you do.
We're not leaving.
What is the plan so that this mayhem and chaos is not added to on the weekend? Like, What are we doing? Are we blocking streets? What are we doing? Are we blocking off-ramps? We must be doing something because we cannot have another dangerous weekend in our downtown.
So, Councillor McKinney, I can't speak to the specifics of the plan because it would jeopardize its operational success. But what I can tell you is there's a number of interventions that you will see, that you have already seen over the last 24 hours, and you will continue to see over the next day and coming days that will achieve exactly what you're asking for.
And will that ensure that we don't get a surge of new sympathizers to this occupation, illegal occupation, on the weekend?
That is absolutely part of our planning and rollout.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have very similar questions for city staff when we go to that portion, because I have not so much as had a message from city staff. We are tired. We are fed up. You can see what people are living under here. It is not okay. And now we're playing political games here today. And I've had it. I pleaded with people, but now people in the downtown are angry and they want action. I'll have many more questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Chief Bell. I'm going to call you Chief, not acting, not interim, because right now you are the Chief, and I thank you for stepping up in a very difficult time to take on that role. My question to you is: you've said several times that there's a plan that's going to unroll over the next couple of days. You can't give us the details. I understand why you don't want to give operational details in public. I understand that. But what I want to know is, you were appointed yesterday. Is this your plan? Is this, without giving us details, is this what you would have done? Is this how you would have rolled it out? Because you have to be invested in this plan. The residents of the city have lost faith that there is a plan, that there's a way forward. So I want to hear from you whether this is a plan you are comfortable with, a plan that you would have proceeded with in any event, or if this is a plan that you've inherited and you're tweaking it and you're stuck with what you've got. Or is this Chief Bell's plan to fix this problem? So
I'll start with my investment. What I'll say is I am absolutely invested to work with our partners to end this occupation. Know that I represent that on behalf of every member of our police service who is invested in ending this occupation. Like I indicated earlier, we've brought in some of the best planning minds in terms of these operations from across the country. I've been fully briefed on the plan, and I have absolute confidence and support that this is the plan that we will roll out and will have success to end the occupation of our streets. There is the investment of our police service, there's the investment of the RCMP, the OPP, and multiple other municipal police services from Ontario and across Canada that are working towards the common goal to deliver this plan to have a successful end to this.
Thank you for that, Chief. And a quick follow-up, more of a procedural or practical question. I think you're hearing the frustration from a lot of councillors that we don't know what's going on. Not whether we can direct you or not, but we don't know what's going on because there's Police Services Board and there's Council. And there's the ability at Police Services Board to go in camera and to brief Police Service Board members. I don't know how much detail you go into about plans or not, but is there a mechanism for councillors to be included in in-camera briefings via the Police Services Board?
So that would be a question that I would turn over to David White and City Legal to actually answer.
Okay, I'm fine to hear from Mr. White.
Mr. Mayor, the determination, as in the same way that Council and its committees determine who it is prepared to invite into its in-camera briefings, depending on the matter that's to be considered. Again, that would be a question that would be in the purview of the Police Services Board. As to the scope of information, of operational information that can be shared even with the Police Services Board. Again, even the board itself is not entitled to direct the chief with respect to specific operational decisions, or as you know, with the day-to-day management of the police service. And so that may circumscribe even the amount of operational information that the police can or are prepared to share with respect to an ongoing operation like this. So, is there a mechanism for it? I think the mechanism may exist. As to whether that will provide members of council with the degree of information, and again, whether police are comfortable sharing that degree of information, even in that context, is something that I think you need to explore with the board, and presumably in conjunction with the chief.
Oh, thank you for that clarification, Mr. White. And let me be clear, it was not my intent to suggest in any way that council could direct the police. I think we all understand that's not the case, and it's not within our sphere of authority. Just a quick follow-up, though, Mr. White, as you've gone off camera, is when you said that would have to go through the board, is that through the board in its entirety, or is that a decision that the chair of the board would make? Or does the board have to vote on whether or not to include members of council in in-camera hearings?
Mr. Mayor, in response, the board is ultimately, as is council, kind of the master of its procedure in that regard. And from my perspective, I'm not aware of anything in their procedure bylaw that would allow that decision to be made solely, for example, by the chair. So would a board member have to put forth that motion, or would a council member have to put forward the request in writing? How would that work? Mr. Mayor, given that it's something I'm not aware has been done before, that's procedurally, I think that's something we need to explore with the board's executive director.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's something that many council members would like the answer to. That whether it's possible, the how of it, procedurally that could occur. So I'll leave that with you, Mr. White, and I'm certain that you'll get back to council with what the answer is. So thank you for that. I have nothing more, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Luloff, please.
Hey, Chief, I appreciate how accessible that you've always been to me and to us. And I appreciate how accessible you've been over the last 24 hours, given the current situation. So just a quick note of thanks to you, sir. I'm pleased to hear of your plan and to hear your commitments. It really is a ray of hope to those that have felt under siege for weeks. I'm concerned that those who remain may not be interested in leaving peacefully. Built up areas make operations such as this very difficult. I don't want specifics, but do you have mitigation measures in place to ensure that any operation to end this keeps nearby residents safe?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. I can tell you the safety and security of the members of the public are paramount first and foremost. Then is the safety of the demonstrators and safety of our police officers engaged in the operation. So every plan we have is centered and starts around public safety and the safety of our community members.
And bystanders as well, people living in adjacent buildings. Okay, great. What's your message to the residents that live nearby or in the middle of this prior to any plan being executed or rolled out?
Start with the empathy. I know how they feel. I know how frustrated they are. I know that they haven't seen the action that they need, that they've deserved over the last number of days, over the last number of weeks. What I can tell them is, what I would tell them is, there's an absolute commitment from this leadership, this police service, and our partners across the country to end this so that they can get their lives back, so they can feel safe in their homes and where they work. That would be my message.
We're seeing some of the main organizers posting that they are leaving. Some leaving to other provinces, pardon my dogs, perhaps to save face and avoid your enforcement efforts. What can I tell the residents about those who have broken the law here in the city and are now trying to leave before any arrests are made?
So what I can let you know is one of the main pillars we started out from very early days was the ability to collect intelligence and evidence on those that occupied here. If they pick up and leave, there still will be consequences for the occupation and the damage they've caused to our cities and the residents of it. The day this ends is not the day the occupation in the street ends, is not the day this criminal process, HTA fining process ends. That will go on for many months after this, and people will be held accountable for what they've done to our city.
Thanks for that, Chief. So let's set some expectations here. So from start to finish, and we're not asking for timing, not looking for specifics, what's the kind of timeline that you're anticipating from start to finish of your efforts?
So I can't give, for operational reasons, I can't give timelines. I know it's the question everyone wants to hear. I can't provide them because we have to maintain operational security so that we can have success in executing it. What I can tell you is it's not going to be it's not a quick turnaround. This is an operation that will take time over a number of days to actually execute and achieve. Again, my deep desire is people leave our city. Those that are occupying our city, get in your vehicles and go home. We're starting to actually increase pressure on them and encourage them to leave our streets. My absolute hope is that they do that prior to us having to intervene.
Thank you very much, Chief. I have more to say later, obviously, but I want you to be able to get back to doing your job. So thank you, friends. I really appreciate you coming out today.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Luloff. Councillor Gower, please.
Chief, last week the police service had started doing daily media updates. I understand the last 24 hours have been extraordinary. Is there a plan to restart those, or what is your plan for media updates over the next few days?
So we will have announcements as part of the rollout of the culmination of the occupation around our media strategy and the media's availability to make sure that we're providing the most up-to-date and timely information on the progress.
Okay. I'll leave it there. Thank you for your time and for answering questions from council today.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Interim Chief Bell, for providing this update. I just had a quick question. During the duration of this meeting, we saw an additional further notice be issued to demonstrators from OPS. I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit of detail in terms of the difference of the document that has just been issued now versus what has been circulated earlier this morning at different sites, as well as to where these, I guess, notices have been circulated throughout the city in terms of location.
So in every location that there is demonstrator occupation activities, we have actually engaged with them both physically in terms of dialogue as well as media releases, written materials as we move ahead. What you've seen is a stepped up approach through the day. The latest release is again an escalation in our messaging to protesters and demonstrators. And I've said it many times, leave. It is time to go home. We want you to peacefully exit our city. We will facilitate that to get you back on the road and go back to wherever you came from. This is going to end. So we need you to leave in a peaceful manner. You're seeing our messaging being increasingly clear on the need for people to exit our streets.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mayor.
We're coming up on the Chief's time, so I'd ask Councillor El-Shantiri, and then I think the Chief has to be back for a meeting that started 5-10 minutes ago. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Acting Chief. My question actually to Mr. White, as I look at some of the history, I believe, Mr. White, the board can invite councillor for in-camera briefing. Presumably, they will follow the rules and regulations the police board member has to follow. So if there's an oath need to be shared, or to keep this in camera, I think it could be done, because I was looking at Justice Morgan's report, the one about the G20, and there's an ability for the board to be able to ask the operational about their operational plan, not necessarily interfere in their plan, but they can ask about the plan and what the plan is. And I don't have to tell you about Morgan's report, because you and I, we study it to death at some point, but there is ability for council to join a police board colleagues in the in-camera meeting, presumably that, they keep it confidential, and the operational, it will be limited. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, I'm just going to check with the chief. There's Councillor Menard has a question. Do you have the time, Chief?
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for checking. I can take one final question, but I do have to go because our partners are waiting.
Okay, Councillor Menard.
I'll be quick. It's one question. There's likely to be counter protests if no action is taken. We've already seen them in some cases, given the failure to act so far. I'm wondering how you'll enforce Emergency Act measures if there is counter protests.
Again, I understand the frustration of our residents, and we've been clear about that throughout this, that we absolutely understand their feelings as they come into this. We would ask, we have a plan. We have a plan that's well resourced, that will be well executed. We ask that there not be counter protests so that we can properly execute that plan and not divert valuable resources away from what is everyone's overall goal, to remove this occupation from our streets.
Okay, and how will you enforce? There's going to be counter protests in all likelihood, regardless of that. So how will you enforce?
So we'll enforce the laws as we have, and as our plan is throughout and moving ahead.
Okay, I hope we side with the residents of Ottawa on this one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Acting Chief Bell and your team. We wish you the very best, a very challenging time for our community and for our city and our police service. And I know that you have other obligations tonight, and you've been working very long hours, so we very much appreciate you spending some time with us. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone.